All right. I just want to welcome you here today for another episode of My Stroke story. And we are privileged today to have with us Joanne Glynn, who's going to talk to us about a wonderful kind of hobby that somebody who has had a stroke can get involved in. And I just want to welcome you here today, Joanne.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I've had the privilege of getting to know Joanne a little bit through Facebook and some other interview time. So we're in for a real treat. And she's got some really great personal experience to share with us today. And the topic is genealogy. And we're going to learn more about how we can find out things about our past and the fun that we can have along the way and how we can record that. So go ahead, Joanne, tell us what you've learned.
Well, I learned about genealogy because my family on my father's side is very involved with it. They're Mormons, and they believe in going back and researching for 4 generations. Of course, my uncle didn't get around to finishing what he started. And so when he passed away, my aunt gave me the family Bible that had some of our genealogy in it. Now, I was 35 at the time, and after she handed it to me, and I was interested in looking and learning more because I really didn't know a lot about my father's side of the family. But she ended the sentence with saying, and by the way, your maiden name is not Elliot.
Oh.
So I had no idea who I was at that moment. And she told me it was up to me to find the information, and there was a beginning point in the Bible where they had part of the genealogy written down.
What a great place to start. Others might have that resource at hand as well.
Absolutely. There's a lot, especially if you have a Bible that's back from the 1800s. It was a very popular way to keep the information about the family in a safe place.
Interesting. So where did you go from there?
Um, well, I at the time Facebook that was not really what it is today, and we didn't have the resources that we do. So I took a lot of bus trips. I lived in Chicago at the time and went to a place where I could use microfiche and
Wow.
sit in an office and go through file after file.
My. Wow, that was a lot of work, wasn't it? So,
It
but now we
was.
don't have to do that. So what can people do today?
Well, what's beautiful about this today is you can go in and Google.
Yeah, I think we
I
all know how to
love
do
to
that.
I love to Google it. And the one thing I found was I put in a great grandfather's name, um, so his papers were back from probably about the beginning of the 1800s, and I thought nothing's going to come up. Well, a whole bunch of stuff came up. And so I started looking at things that other people had done that I was related to that I had no idea who they were. And so that kind of got me really interested, but I still didn't know how to really put down, forms and things
Oh,
like
sure.
that. So then I got involved with Ancestry.com, and that helped a lot as
Oh,
well.
yeah. Could you explain for those that don't know what Ancestry.com is? What is it?
Oh, it's a huge, it had started, I believe, because I went to one of their conferences. I'm trying to remember because this is going back maybe 20 years ago when I first started doing this. Um, it's they started, I believe, with all of the records that had been begun through the Mormon Church. And I'm trying to remember the formal name, and I can't.
That's
But
okay.
they have just enormous records kept in Utah. So that's another source of information. And you don't have to be Mormon to use it. I mean, they have them from all over the world every century. You know, if you're looking for genealogy, it's another good place to
Right.
start.
I know that oftentimes now they'll use DNA. Somebody will offer a sample to these companies, and then they get a DNA, and then they get a DNA match. Um, when did that all start? I mean, is that the way to go?
Well, it's become very popular in about the last 5 years. Um, and there's pros and cons to it. Ancestry does it. 23andMe is another one that's a big one that you can do. And it depends on how comfortable you feel with that, because you have to be prepared. Some people want to be found, and other people really are not in a position in their life where they want to bring any surprises to others. If you have medical issues and you're curious about that, it's a very good reason to go in and try it. If
Okay.
you are looking for somebody and you happen to see their name up on there and they've done it as well, it's a good way to do it.
Okay.
I've not taken the test myself. However, my sister, who I'd been looking for, well, since I found out about her, she was born back in the 50s, and I found out about her when I was about 10 years old. She had been adopted, so I really didn't know how to reach her, and she had
Right.
been one of those mysteries in my life. Well, to make a long story even longer, when I had written my book, Begotten with Love, a woman in Tennessee had read it, and she wrote to me and she said, I think I I know the answers that you're looking for, and because I think we're also related. And she was right. We were cousins, and she's very good at doing genealogy. And she had found my sister. So 65 years later, we found each other. Well, I also knew, and my sister did not, that we had a brother. And our brother had been born, our father had been married before he married my mother. And he had been born, I think, 5 years before me. And his mother had passed away from complications at childbirth. So um, we got in touch with this woman in Tennessee, and she had leads, and she was able to find our brother.
Wow. Isn't
He
it?
had no idea he had any relatives at all, any sisters or brothers or anything.
Wow.
So when Tomiko and I got in touch with him, he he said, I'm absolutely thrilled to know I have sisters, but he said, you've ruined my bad boy image.
Oh.
So,
Oh, that is amazing, right? So what can we tell our listeners today? They're interested in starting this. They can Google, either go into ancestry.com or 23andMe, or they could also Google what? What else could they Google?
well, the other thing they can do is talk to other people in their family. Somebody may know this, may have known for years, or may have stories that they really want to share with other people. It's not all deep, dark secrets. Um, it may be, you almost have to look at yourself as being a mystery writer. You know, you may have a piece of jewelry that has been handed down over the years, I mean, a long time, and you may know that it belonged to a great grandmother and she came here on a ship when she was 17 and took a wagon train across country. I mean, it can bring up all these stories. Write the stories down and then go back and search to see if you can prove whether they're true or not.
I really like that idea because I think there are a lot of stories like that that we get told as children or whatever, and we can just write those down, and we don't have to worry about was this true or not true, what part might be true, what part might not be true. But it's somewhere to start, isn't it?
Yes, that's why I like to think of it as family legends and lore, because there may be a lot of lies in there too, but a lot of times they're so much fun. There's always a cast of characters. I'm never out of material to write about.
Isn't that something? So
But
you,
the one thing that I do want to caution is if you do write about people in your family, whether you do it just as a family situation or if you find that you really do think that there's a story to tell that other people could learn something about your family that would be good for their family as well.
mm,
Always make sure that you do it with kindness
yeah,
and with love, because it may not be something that would hurt you, but it may be something that has been difficult for someone else to live with, and you never want to cause harm to another person.
absolutely. And you wouldn't necessarily have to publish what you write either. Is that right? You could have it, just keep
Exactly.
it in the family or have it for your own family.
Exactly. And a lot of times families may have been writing things and you may know something about a particular piece. Maybe you have a picture or maybe the way grandma cooked. I heard a story a long time ago and I don't know who I heard it from, but they had a story that they always talked about every year at Easter time because grandma was the one that cooked the ham. And before she cooked the ham, she always sliced both ends of the ham off. And nobody ever knew why she did that. They just knew that when it was their turn and they were old enough and the family came to their house for dinner, they would always slice the ends of the ham off on their meat too before they cooked it and served it. But years later, when grandma was in her 90s, late 90s, someone asked her about that. And it turns out the reason she did it was because the pan was too small for the piece of meat.
Isn't that funny? Oh,
So here
no
they
big.
pass, yeah, they pass this tradition down.
I bet that's not far from the truth as far as other things as well that have been passed down. This is how grandma did something, made this pie a certain way, and really, in essence, it wouldn't have made a difference. It just fit her pan or her oven or whatever.
Exactly, exactly. So, but there's always just wonderful, charming stories. And the thing about it is, say maybe somebody in your family is um, very talented as far as art, but never realized that their great great grandparents may have had something that, for example, my grandfather's brother has a sundial that he invented and designed,
Hmm,
and it's in a museum in Chicago. I never knew about that when I lived up there. And one of these days when I get back up there, I want to be able to go and see the one that my Uncle Sven had designed. You know, I've
definitely.
always been very good with my hands, not to the point that any of my other family members are. My grandfather and his brother were both inventors. Um,
Wow. Wow.
so
I always think it's amazing when people, they think that they're half something, half Dutch or something, and they go back into their genealogy and they find out they really maybe aren't half that or whatever. And it's
yeah,
it's kind of an eye opener, I think, for people, and they realize, oh, I guess we're not as Dutch as we are, or something else, or
yeah.
whatever.
And 23andMe is one place, the same with Ancestry, where they can tell you where your heritage actually came from. I have one woman who was very upset when she found out that she wasn't Italian. She's, but I
Oh,
love Italian cooking. How can this be?
well, tell her she still can, right?
That's right.
You still are who you are. Yeah. We're a
So,
wonderful mix of people. I think that's also something to contemplate. We look back at our heritage. Very few of us are purely something,
exactly.
and
Exactly.
we just can rejoice in that because we're a mixture. That's why we really are one race for the human race,
That's right. Yeah.
and we can support one another. But it's just fun, isn't it? I mean, really, every culture is
Yes.
different, and to realize maybe how a different culture in your past through the generations has affected the way you think or the way you like things, or you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we really because when I was very young, my father shipped over to Japan when I was 4 years old. I saw him one time when I was 10 for a day. I began to reform a relationship with him in my 20s. That went on for about 6 months and then he passed away. My mother passed away when I was 14.
Oh,
So I really never knew a lot about my family until I did receive the Bible and the shocking news that I wasn't who I thought I was. But my life has become so much richer because what I have found. And in that time, I have found family.
yes.
Um, and it's made a big difference. I feel much more grounded now than
Hmm.
I did when I was younger.
Isn't that interesting? Wow, that's great. So, someone is listening today who's had a stroke, particularly because that's what we're talking about. You've had a stroke, right?
I had a stroke, totally
So,
paralyzed on
oh,
one side, couldn't walk, couldn't talk, couldn't see straight.
wow.
So, and I've truly come back to full health.
No, I'm very happy for you. That's wonderful. You're such an
Thank you.
encouragement. You share so much of your experience. You've written a book about that as well. I know. Would you like to tell the listeners what you wrote as far as your stroke goes?
My second book is called Trapped Within. And when I was in rehab, I spent 3 months in a rehab facility. A lot of the doctors and uh, therapists would come to my room because they knew I was a writer and wanted to know if what they were offering to me was helping, which it did. But they're book learned, and it's very difficult to take that step beyond that to be able to really know what stroke survivors need.
Yes.
I had a nurse get in touch with me and tell me that she really appreciated the book because what I did was I just chronicled all of the different um, processes that I went through, the anger and the
Mm,
frustration and the trying to um, find a way on my own. And it actually followed, and I didn't realize this until I finished the book, but it followed all of the steps of the grieving process.
oh, yes. Mm,
So if any of the stroke survivors are listening, are struggling with being caught in a certain area, just realize that you're grieving for who you were and who you are now. We all have a point where we wish that we were the person we were because we never gave anybody permission to take that away. It was stolen from us. And so we have to come to terms with that
mm,
before we can become the person that we're going to be now.
yeah.
And I'll tell you, the person I am now has so much more gratitude and love of life than what I had before.
Wow.
So keep working. You're
Yeah.
gonna find that.
Yeah. And then what we've been talking about today with the genealogy, get involved in something, right? This is a wonderful hobby.
Absolutely.
Now, you have created a form or something that people could follow that might be helpful?
I did, and I'll make sure that you have that so that people who would like to do this have a place to write down all the information that they have found. So it will help you and them and others who may not even be born yet that will have that love for wanting to know more about their family.
Oh, that is great. This is wonderful. I have really gained a lot of insight into the whole area of genealogy just talking to you and what it means and what it has meant to you to kind
Thank
of
you.
delve into it and find out more about the past, but also just for you yourself, that you feel more settled, you feel more stable in who you are today. That can be a big thing, can't it? There can be some eye openers for some people
Yes,
that learn things they didn't know they had, family members. I have a friend who has had that happen and found a family member that way. So you just don't know. You got to be prepared for that. And I
yes,
really appreciated your word of caution that as we write about other people's lives, that that's a privilege to be able to do that. And we must do that in kindness, no matter what has been involved, because it's their story, isn't it? And this is our story.
yes. It's yes, yes. So,
That's wonderful.
some of the other things I just wanted to mention
Sure.
when you're talking about Googling or looking for different things. If you have, for example, a picture and you see like a horse and carriage, or you see um, a car that you don't recognize or the way they dress. You
Mm.
can go back and Google something like 1920 business suit or
Oh,
1900 um, dress code for women or whatever. And you will find a whole bunch of information. You may find, I know with my grandmother on my mother's side, she was a woman that came over when she was 17. Her father had passed away. Her
mm.
mother had younger children to raise,
Yeah.
and they had nothing. They were destitute. So she came to America as an
Right.
indentured servant.
Oh, right.
A lot of people do that.
Uh-huh.
And you can find a lot of information about what it was like, what they were expected
Sure.
to do and not do.
Right.
So you'll end up with a great appreciation for what your grandparents lived through and the courage it took for them to
Absolutely.
to live and have a life.
Oh, what a good
So,
point. Thank you for sharing that. Wow. So much today. We've learned so much, and I'm sure that it wouldn't be a bad idea to get Joanne back again and share even
thank you.
more of stories, the actual stories that you have uncovered about yourself.
Well, I would love to hear the stories they're involved in, and if they're writing something and they, are not sure which way to turn. I don't know if I would have answers or not, but I'd certainly be, happy to help them any way I could.
Oh, that is wonderful. All right. Well, this is going to conclude today's episode of My Stroke Stories. And I am so happy that Joanne Glim could be with us today. We learned a lot. I think we've been encouraged. I know other stroke survivors have written books, and this is just another idea of a book topic, a book idea that could be a lot of fun and something you can do from the computer, which is exciting. So thanks for being with us today. And we look
Thank you
forward to
so
our
much for having me.
You are so welcome. We look forward to having you back again. Thank
Thank you.
you.